Do not dismiss what you are about to experience tonight, because the shift arriving on Saturday, June 6th, is the kind of moment many people pass through without ever recognizing. Ironically, most will be asleep when it begins, and not just in the ordinary sense. As the moon moves into Pisces, a hidden doorway inside your awareness begins to unlock, a place that has remained inaccessible for far longer than you may realize. This is not an ordinary lunar movement, and it is certainly not one of those subtle energetic fluctuations that drifts by unnoticed. What opens now is a concentrated period lasting 72 hours, a rare interval during which the distance between perception and deeper knowing becomes astonishingly small. During this time, the messages reaching you may feel less like intuition and more like direct communication arriving from somewhere beyond the limits of ordinary thought. For some, the clarity of those realizations may be so profound that it challenges everything they believe they understood about themselves and their path forward. If the past several days have felt unusually difficult to navigate mentally, if your concentration has been slipping, if simple decisions have felt strangely exhausting, if your thoughts have seemed scattered and disconnected from one another, pay close attention. There is a very specific reason behind that experience, and before this unfolding reaches its peak, you need to understand why it happened. What arrives with the Pisces moon is not an isolated event. It is the culmination of an energetic process that has been building steadily throughout the entire week. Every emotional shift, every moment of uncertainty, every strange sensation of disconnection has been part of a larger preparation. Without recognizing that preparation, many people will overlook some of the most significant insights available to them this year. Looking back over the previous days, you may notice a pattern. Perhaps conversations felt more emotionally charged than usual. Perhaps memories surfaced unexpectedly. Perhaps your attention kept drifting toward unresolved feelings, old experiences, family matters, or deeply personal reflections. None of that occurred by accident. On June 1st, Mercury, the planet associated with thinking, communication, reasoning, and mental organization, entered Cancer. The moment that transition occurred, the landscape of the mind began to change. Instead of moving through information with its usual speed and precision, consciousness became filtered through emotion. Thoughts were no longer arriving as clean facts. They carried memories, feelings, associations, and emotional weight. Many people attempted to maintain their usual level of logic during this period, only to discover that their minds seemed less willing to operate according to familiar rules. Then June 3rd arrived and intensified everything. Mercury formed a square with Neptune, the planetary force traditionally connected with dreams, illusion, intuition, mystery, and realities that exist beyond ordinary rational understanding. A square between these energies creates tension. It demands confrontation. Suddenly, the structures people depend upon to interpret reality become unstable. What seemed certain begins to feel uncertain. What seemed obvious becomes difficult to define. The confusion many experienced was not evidence that something was wrong. In many ways, it was evidence that something deeper was beginning to emerge. The inability to think in perfectly straight lines, the difficulty finding precise words, the sensation that clarity remained just beyond reach, all of it served a purpose. It was as though the cosmos was deliberately exhausting the analytical mind. Most people assume mental fog is an obstacle. What if it was actually a doorway? What if the logical system had to loosen its grip before another form of perception could become accessible? That is the process reaching completion tonight. As the moon enters Pisces on June 6th, something dormant begins to awaken. What has been preparing beneath the surface does not merely become active, it accelerates, it intensifies, it demands attention. This is where many begin speaking about the third eye, yet the reality of what is happening is often misunderstood. People frequently imagine it as a distant spiritual achievement reserved for years of meditation and discipline. What unfolds now is much more immediate. It begins not only with symbolism, but with the body itself. Across countless spiritual traditions spanning thousands of years, Pisces has been associated with the pineal gland, a small structure located deep within the center of the brain. Esoteric teachings and yogic systems have long connected this gland with the Ajna chakra, often described as the center of intuition, inner sight, higher perception, and the mysterious faculty sometimes called the sixth sense. When the moon enters Pisces, the symbolism surrounding this connection becomes amplified. The energy associated with Pisces appears to resonate with this inner center of awareness. It is as though a subtle signal begins transmitting directly into the deepest layers of perception. Under this kind of pressure, the boundary separating conscious awareness from the subconscious mind begins to weaken dramatically. Mystics throughout history have described this boundary as a veil. During the next several nights, that veil may feel thinner than usual, allowing impressions, insights, symbols, and intuitions to move more freely between worlds. This may explain why unusual fatigue appears this evening, even among those who have rested adequately. It may explain why the coming 3 nights are likely to bring dreams that feel exceptionally vivid, emotionally charged, and strangely significant. Many will awaken feeling as though they have not merely dreamed, but witnessed something important. Some may notice flashes of imagery emerging when their eyes are closed. Others may become aware of colors, symbols, or impressions that seem disconnected from any known memory. These experiences may feel difficult to explain through ordinary logic, yet they are part of the same unfolding process. And what makes this moment so important is not merely that these experiences occur. It is what they may be attempting to reveal. Because once this doorway opens fully, the information moving through it has the potential to change how you understand everything that follows. What most people fail to realize is that the part of you that normally questions everything, the internal gatekeeper that sorts information, demands evidence and immediately rejects anything that cannot be neatly explained, has already been gradually losing its grip throughout this entire week. The confusion you have been wrestling with was not an accident. The Mercury-Neptune square did far more than create uncertainty. It quietly dismantled the defenses your rational mind depends upon. It loosened the structures that usually stand between you and deeper perception. Think about what these last several days have felt like. The harder you tried to force certainty, the more elusive it became. The more intensely you searched for clear answers, the further they seemed to drift away. That experience was not punishment. It was preparation. It was as though the universe was clearing away layers of mental noise, so something far more important could finally be heard. Now the process reaches a critical turning point. When the moon enters Pisces tonight at 8:40, the pathway that has been opening all week becomes fully accessible. What arrives through that opening is not random imagination, nor is it some collection of meaningless symbols. It comes as a series of revelations, each one meeting you precisely where you stand in your life right now. The first of these messages may be the most emotionally overwhelming because it touches a truth that many spend years avoiding. The feeling of separation that has shaped so much of your experience was never as real as you believed. During this Pisces transit, many people will experience something difficult to describe with ordinary language. It will not begin as an idea. It will begin as a feeling. You may be sitting quietly, moving through an ordinary moment, when suddenly something shifts inside you. Without warning, an unexpected wave of connection may rise from somewhere deep beneath conscious thought. For a brief moment, the distance between yourself and the world around you seems to dissolve. The invisible barriers you assumed existed between you and everyone else begin to feel strangely transparent. The person across the room no longer appears separate. The stranger living on the other side of the world no longer feels entirely distant. Even the natural world around you may seem infused with a kind of intimacy that catches you off guard. Pisces occupies the final position in the zodiac, Because of this, it carries the symbolic wisdom gathered from every sign that comes before it. When the moon travels through Pisces, it tends to blur boundaries that normally feel permanent. The protective walls built by the ego become less rigid. Emotional currents move more freely. This is why seemingly ordinary experiences can suddenly carry enormous emotional weight. A story that would normally leave you unaffected may unexpectedly touch something deep inside your heart. A brief interaction with someone you barely know may feel unusually meaningful. You may even look at a person who has been part of your life for years and realize you are seeing them with a depth of understanding you have never experienced before. If this happens, do not mistake it for emotional instability. Do not assume you are becoming overly sensitive. What you are encountering is the first message emerging through the Pisces moon. It reveals that the divisions your mind depends upon are often far less solid than they appear. The sorrow you recognize in another person reflects something shared. The compassion you offer yourself extends beyond your own life. The healing you allow yourself to receive influences far more than you can see. There is a profound shift that occurs when this realization moves beyond intellectual understanding and settles into your emotional reality. Once that happens, the way you relate to life begins to transform. And it is this transformation that naturally leads into the second revelation, a message that challenges one of the deepest assumptions many people carry about themselves. Throughout most of your life, you have been taught to trust your mind above all else. You have been encouraged to analyze, calculate, explain, and reason your way through every challenge. Yet the strange mental fog that has accompanied this week has been exposing a difficult truth. The second message, arriving through the Pisces moon, asks you to consider that your thinking mind may not be equipped to answer the questions currently standing before you. The discomfort you experienced under the Mercury-Neptune square was demonstrating this lesson in real time. Many people responded to the confusion by pushing harder. They tried to solve uncertainty with more analysis. They attempted to think their way into clarity. Instead, the confusion deepened. The harder they forced the process, the more fragmented everything became. There was a reason for that. Certain truths do not arrive through logic. They emerge through feeling. They announce themselves through instinct, intuition, and inner recognition. Sometimes they appear as a sudden certainty in the middle of uncertainty. Sometimes they arrive as an unmistakable sensation in the body. Sometimes they emerge as a knowing so immediate and powerful that no explanation is required. Over the next 3 days, experiences like this may become increasingly common. You may find yourself understanding something about a person without being able to explain how you know it. You may suddenly recognize the direction a situation is heading long before visible evidence appears. You may finally receive clarity regarding a decision that has remained unresolved for far too long. When these moments arrive, your first instinct may be to question them. The analytical mind will demand proof. It will ask for facts, evidence, and guarantees. Yet the energy unfolding now operates differently. The deeper intuitive faculties activated during this Pisces transit do not communicate through arguments or calculations. They communicate through resonance. They communicate through direct perception. Those willing to trust what emerges may discover opportunities, breakthroughs, and insights in the coming weeks that appear almost miraculous from the perspective of ordinary logic. Those who refuse to listen may find themselves repeating familiar patterns because they continue searching for answers in places where those answers no longer exist. Deep within yourself, you likely already know which path feels true, and that realization prepares you for the next phase of this journey, which carries a much heavier emotional weight. As June 8th approaches, only 2 days after the moon enters Pisces, the atmosphere intensifies significantly. At that point, the moon forms an exact square with the sun, creating the last quarter moon. Across many ancient traditions, this phase has long been associated with release, completion, and the clearing away of what can no longer continue forward. In Pisces, this process rarely feels gentle. Instead, it often resembles a powerful emotional cleansing. Layers of the past begin rising toward the surface because they are asking to be acknowledged one final time. You may already sense the early signs. Perhaps there is a heaviness that appears unexpectedly. Perhaps old memories return without invitation. Perhaps emotions connected to experiences you believed were fully resolved suddenly reappear with surprising intensity. For some, this may involve grief that was never fully expressed. For others, it may involve regret connected to roads not taken, opportunities missed, or choices left unexplored. For others still, it may involve unresolved resentment that has quietly remained beneath the surface despite years of convincing themselves they had moved on. The third message carried by this transit does not arrive with softness. It arrives with force. It arrives like a powerful tide that suddenly changes the landscape beneath your feet. It reveals that what you continue to carry is influencing far more of your life than you realize, and the time for confronting it directly is rapidly approaching. There comes a moment during every major spiritual turning point when the question is no longer what is arriving, but what still remains inside you that refuses to leave. This is the threshold many people try to avoid because it demands a level of honesty that cannot be performed for an audience. It is not the honesty you show in conversations. It is not the version of truth you share when others are listening. It is the kind that appears during the quietest hours of the night, when distractions disappear and there is nowhere left to hide from yourself. As the Pisces moon continues its journey and the energy of the last quarter moon approaches, you may find yourself confronting an uncomfortable realization. Some part of your life is still occupied by something that has already reached its ending. A belief that once protected you but now limits you. A relationship whose emotional presence remains long after its purpose has faded. An identity you continue carrying simply because it feels familiar, even though it no longer reflects who you are becoming. The deeper you move into this transit, the more impossible it becomes to ignore these truths. Pisces has a way of dissolving illusions, especially the ones we maintain about ourselves. What makes this moment so significant is that the universe is not asking you to release these things as a punishment. It is asking because something new is trying to enter your life, and there is no room for it yet. Imagine standing at the doorway of a future that contains opportunities, connections, experiences, and growth beyond anything you currently expect, while still carrying the emotional weight of what belongs to the past. Eventually, something has to give. This is one of the hidden teachings contained within the last quarter moon. Completion is not merely an ending, it is a preparation for arrival. The universe cannot place something extraordinary into a space that remains crowded with what has already expired. Space must be created. Emotional ground must be cleared. Attachments that have outlived their purpose must be acknowledged and released. Many people attempt to avoid this process because letting go feels uncertain. Yet what feels even more uncomfortable is when life begins removing these things for you. The energy surrounding this transit can become remarkably direct when necessary. Situations that have been lingering unresolved may suddenly demand closure. Emotional patterns you have repeatedly avoided may rise to the surface with greater intensity. Conversations you postponed may become unavoidable. This is not because the universe is working against you. It is because it is attempting to prepare you for what comes next. If grief needs expression, allow it. If emotions need acknowledgement, give them space. If old pain requires a final release, do not resist the process. Write the truth down if necessary. Speak it aloud. Let the feelings move through you instead of remaining trapped inside. What waits beyond that release may be impossible to fully imagine from where you currently stand. Yet it is moving toward you far faster than you realize. And while this deep emotional clearing is taking place within your inner world, Another extraordinary development is quietly gathering strength just beyond the horizon. Most people will not recognize its significance until it begins unfolding in real time. On June 9th, only hours after the Moon completes its passage through Pisces, Venus and Jupiter unite in an exact conjunction within the sign of Cancer. To understand why this alignment carries such importance, you must understand the forces involved. Venus governs attraction, affection, beauty, relationships, and the value we place upon ourselves and others. Jupiter represents growth, expansion, opportunity, blessings, and abundance. Whenever these two planetary energies come together, astrologers have traditionally regarded the alignment as one of the most beneficial combinations available. Yet this particular conjunction carries additional weight because it occurs in Cancer, the sign where Jupiter is considered exalted. In this position, Jupiter expresses its qualities with exceptional strength. The result is not a subtle influence. It resembles the opening of a powerful channel through which emotional fulfillment, supportive relationships, meaningful opportunities, and material blessings can begin flowing more freely. Yet there is an important detail many people overlook. The abundance connected to this alignment is not separated from the emotional work occurring under the Pisces Moon. In fact, they are deeply connected. This forms the fourth message emerging through the transit. What is moving toward you is directly linked to your willingness to remain emotionally open. This period is not rewarding emotional armor. It is not prioritizing clever strategies, endless productivity, or the relentless pursuit of achievement at any cost. Instead, it favors those who are willing to lead with authenticity, those who are courageous enough to remain vulnerable, those who continue nurturing meaningful connections even after disappointment, those who choose generosity, compassion, and emotional truth, not because they expect immediate rewards, but because those actions align with who they genuinely are. The Pisces Moon has been opening deeper perception so that this lesson becomes impossible to miss. Lasting abundance is not created solely through pursuit. It often emerges through receptivity. It grows when fear loosens its grip. It expands when the walls built around the heart begin to soften. It arises when space exists for something larger than personal control to enter. If you have used this transit wisely, if you have allowed yourself to release outdated attachments, confront unresolved emotions, and create room within your life for something new, then the Venus-Jupiter conjunction represents the next chapter of that journey. Opportunities may appear unexpectedly. Support may arrive from surprising directions. Encounters may occur that seem almost perfectly timed. Resources, relationships, and possibilities may emerge in ways that feel difficult to explain through ordinary logic. Yet none of it is accidental. It is the natural consequence of becoming available for what was always trying to find you. And all of these developments, the awakening, the intuition, the emotional clearing, the opening toward abundance, ultimately point toward one final realization. In many ways, it may be the most important message of all. Earlier this year, Neptune, the ruling planet of Pisces, completed a major chapter by leaving Pisces after 14 years and entering Aries. That movement signaled more than a planetary transition. It marked a profound shift in spiritual momentum. The landscape has changed. The old model of awakening, the idea that growth consists solely of observation, contemplation, and waiting for life to reveal the next step, is no longer enough. A different energy is emerging now. Aries introduces movement. It introduces courage. It introduces action. The fifth message carried through this Pisces moon reflects that new reality. The clarity arriving during this transit is not intended to remain an abstract experience. It is not being offered simply so you can admire it. It is being offered so you can use it. Intuition becomes meaningful when it influences choices. Awareness becomes powerful when it transforms behavior. Vision becomes valuable when it leads to movement. The opening of the third eye is not occurring merely to provide beautiful dreams or symbolic experiences. It is providing direction. It is helping reveal the path ahead. It is showing you aspects of yourself that have remained hidden beneath doubt, hesitation, and fear. It is illuminating possibilities you may have sensed for a long time but never fully trusted. The message becomes increasingly clear. Stop postponing what you already know needs to happen. Stop searching endlessly for external validation. Stop requesting confirmation from the universe for truths that have already been placed inside your awareness. The signs you have received throughout this week were not random. The intuitive nudges, the unexpected realizations, the moments of unmistakable inner knowing, they were all preparing you for this point. They were preparing you to move. Neptune in Aries is not interested in maintaining comfort. It is interested in purpose. It is interested in whether you are willing to act upon what you have been shown. Whether that purpose is fully visible yet or not, the Pisces Moon is offering guidance. It is placing the map in your hands. What happens next depends entirely on whether you choose to follow it. Pay very close attention to what happens after tonight, because the next 72 hours are not simply another chapter in an ordinary week. They represent a threshold, a brief but powerful passage that has the potential to alter the direction of everything that follows. Beginning this evening, the Moon continues its journey through Pisces, and every process that has been building beneath the surface finally begins expressing itself in real time. The awakening of deeper perception, the series of revelations that have been emerging throughout this transit, the emotional clearing, the preparation for abundance, all of it now moves from theory into lived experience. This is the moment when what was previously hidden starts becoming impossible to ignore. The first signs often appear within the body itself. Before your mind understands what is happening, your physical system may begin responding. You may notice an unusual heaviness settling over you. Not exhaustion in the ordinary sense, but a dreamlike quality that seems to soften the edges of reality. A sudden wave of drowsiness may arrive without warning. Your senses may become strangely heightened and distant at the same time. Sounds seem more meaningful. Emotions feel closer to the surface. Time itself may appear to move differently. It can feel as though the world has simultaneously stepped closer and farther away, creating a sensation that is difficult to explain but impossible to miss once it begins. As the hours pass, this experience often deepens through sleep. The nights ahead may carry a level of intensity that surprises you. Dreams become more vivid, more emotionally charged, and far more memorable than usual. Some may feel less like ordinary dreams and more like encounters with information arriving from somewhere beyond conscious awareness. Images may appear with remarkable clarity. Symbols may repeat themselves. Conversations may occur that seem to carry deeper meaning than the mind can immediately interpret. Upon waking, there may be a powerful urge to dismiss these experiences and move on with the day. Resist that temptation. Capture what you remember the moment you awaken. Write down the details before they fade. Record the emotions, the symbols, the people, the locations, and the sensations. These impressions disappear quickly, yet they often contain insights that reveal their significance only later. Many people overlook valuable guidance simply because they assumed it was insignificant in the moment. During this Pisces passage, paying attention becomes part of the journey itself. Yet the experience does not remain confined to dreams. Soon it begins spilling into everyday life. The boundary between inner and outer reality becomes increasingly fluid. Patterns start appearing with unusual frequency. Certain numbers may repeat themselves again and again. Conversations may echo thoughts you never spoke aloud. A song may play at precisely the moment you needed to hear its message. Encounters that appear coincidental may carry an unmistakable feeling of purpose. What makes these moments so powerful is not the events themselves, but the timing surrounding them. They arrive with a precision that feels almost impossible to ignore. One experience reinforces another. Then another follows. Eventually, the pattern becomes too consistent to dismiss. Whether you call them signs, synchronicities, or meaningful coincidences, they often function as reminders that deeper currents are moving beneath the surface of everyday life. This is not the kind of energy that simply appears and disappears without consequence. The events of this week have been building toward this exact moment. The Mercury-Neptune square loosened old perceptions and challenged the mind's need for certainty. The Pisces Moon opened channels of intuition, emotional awareness, and deeper perception. Then, immediately afterward, the Venus-Jupiter conjunction on June 9th arrives to anchor what has been revealed into a new reality. These events are not isolated from one another. They are chapters within the same unfolding story. Each step prepares the way for the next. Those who recognize what is taking place often discover that these 3 days become a defining point in their personal timeline. Not because something dramatic necessarily happens on the surface, but because something profound shifts internally. Months later, they may look back and realize that the choices they made, the realizations they embraced, and the truths they accepted during this brief window quietly redirected the course of their lives. Decisions that once felt overwhelming suddenly become clear. Questions that seemed impossible to answer reveal their solutions. Directions that were hidden beneath uncertainty emerge with surprising simplicity. What once appeared confusing begins making sense. Yet not everyone responds to these energies in the same way. Many people will experience the same influences without recognizing what is happening. They will feel the emotional currents. They will encounter the synchronicities. They will sense the internal pressure to change. But because they treat it as just another weekend or just another astrological event, they may fail to engage with the opportunity being offered. Eventually, the energy passes, the moment closes, and life continues. The difference is that nothing truly changes for them. They remain trapped within the same cycles, asking why progress feels elusive while others seem to move forward. The opportunity existed for everyone. The willingness to respond was what made the difference. This is why your presence here matters. Out of all the information available to you, something drew your attention to this message. Perhaps it was curiosity. Perhaps it was intuition. Perhaps it was a feeling you could not fully explain. Whatever the reason, some deeper part of your awareness recognized that this moment deserved attention. There are times in life when logic alone cannot explain why we feel drawn towards certain ideas, conversations, or experiences. Yet those moments often become the ones that matter most. Over the next 3 days, you do not need to force anything. You do not need to chase answers or demand immediate certainty. Instead, remain open. Remain aware. Pay attention to what arises within you and around you. Be honest about what no longer belongs in your life. Allow outdated fears, attachments, and identities to fall away if they are ready to leave. At the same time, make room for what is attempting to enter. New perspectives, new opportunities, new levels of understanding, new versions of yourself. Because the greatest shift taking place during this Pisces moon is not simply about how you see the world, it is about how you see yourself within it. That is where real transformation begins. The external changes are only reflections of an internal awakening that has already started. When this transit completes its work and you emerge on the other side, the most important difference may not be the circumstances surrounding your life. It may be the person looking back at you in the mirror. And often, that is the change that alters everything else. Thank you for spending this time here and sharing in this journey. If this message resonated with you, and you would like to continue exploring future insights together, consider subscribing to the channel. Your support helps this community continue growing. Feel free to share your experiences, reflections, and observations in the comments. Your story may be exactly what someone else needs to hear. Until we meet again, take care of yourself, stay aware of the signs unfolding around you, and continue moving forward with courage and openness.